to the distance in your...
Good afternoon. Welcome to the Atheist Experience. We're live Sunday, May 8th, 2005. I'm your host, Matt Dillahunty. I'm filling in for Ashley Perry this week. Ashley will be back again next week, and joining me this week is Jeff Dee.
Hi, Matt.
Thanks for coming down.
Always a pleasure.
We'd like to thank all of you for joining us, and a special hello and happy Mother's Day to all the moms that are out there. Got a few regular announcements to go through, and then we'll get on to Jeff and callers. Remember, this is a live call-in program. We'll be posting the number in just a few minutes. If you have questions or comments, or you want to harass us, preach to us, or tell us why you're right and we're wrong, feel free to call on in. We're sponsored by the Atheist Community of Austin, a nonprofit educational organization promoting positive atheism and the separation of church and state. We have weekly meetings at Crescent City Beignets on 6th Street, a few blocks west of Lamar. Those meetings started around 11:30 a.m. each Sunday, except for the third Sunday of the month, where we host a lecture series at the Austin History Center. Those begin at 12:30. The Austin History Center is located at 9th and Guadalupe, and attendance is open to any atheist or atheist-friendly people. You do not have to be a member to attend.
Might I cut in for a moment?
Sure.
To make an announcement for our group? This next lecture, we're not going to have a speaker. We have some... Oh, you have that?
Yep.
Never mind. You're ahead of me. Go ahead.
No problem. This coming Sunday, May 15th, we'll still be meeting at the Austin History Center at 12:30, but we'll be discussing proposed changes to our bylaws instead of the normal lecture. Members should have received a copy of the proposals in the mail, and all ACA members are encouraged to attend and vote. We also host other social events throughout the week. On Mondays, members who are interested in a little friendly gaming, word games, board games, card games, whatever, are welcome to attend Godless Gamers at the home of Russell Glasser. And also on Thursday evenings, we meet at Antonio's Tex-Mex for Atheist Happy Hour. That begins at 7:30, and Antonio's is located on the southbound feeder road of I-35 at the corner of 183. That's also open to members and non-members alike. If you're interested in attending any of these events, the times, dates, contact information is available on our website, atheist-community.org, or you can email us at tv@atheist-community.org. And finally, we've been meeting for dinner each week after the show. We're on the air from 4:30 p.m. to about 6, well, till exactly 6, and then after some cleanup, we head down to Chili's, which is the southeast corner of I-35 and 183. We normally get there about 6:45 or so. Have a nice dinner after the show, talk, and you're welcome to come down and meet us down there. Any atheist or atheist-friendly people, if your purpose is to come down and preach to us, don't bother coming down to Chili's. Just call in as soon as we put the number up, and we'll be happy to talk to you here. We kind of like to eat dinner in peace. And I think that's about it for the regular announcements. But we do have some pictures from Thursday's National Day of Prayer protest rally at the Capitol building.
Yeah.
We had a few of us show up there.
That was a hoot.
Yeah, it was a lot of interesting things happened. And they had the band set up on the Capitol steps, and they basically did a Christian music festival all the way up to and then again after the prayer. It was kind of surprising. Well, it wasn't as surprising as I thought, but for a non-denominational service to be talking about Jesus and Christianity and praising God up there on the Capitol steps. Yeah.
Now, there were multiple National Day of Prayer events around town. This is not the one the governor attended, which is the biggest issue that we have.
Yeah, I noticed the lieutenant governor came out instead.
Did he? He was at this one?
He came out and did the
well,
prayer and the
that's bad
invitation.
too. I mean, I don't particularly mind if religious organizations get their turn borrowing the steps of the Capitol to do their things. That's as long as they do it on their own and are just being given equal access to the venue, that's okay. The problem is that the governor signed a proclamation of the National Day of Prayer that was way, way, way over the top.
Here's some of the people who were gathered out front before the prayer. And several people gathered and sat around on park benches to read their Bibles and pray and just be there for the event. And that's actually, I got into a discussion with a few of them who were sitting there who thought I was there to object to them praying. And I said, no, I'm not objecting to you praying. As a matter of fact, you can gather up 1 million of your friends and come to the Capitol steps every day to pray for guidance for the leaders if you want. You're exercising your religious freedom. We're here objecting to the government's involvement and endorsement of prayer.
Right.
And here's another shot of us standing out front.
Much the same as the last one, but the signs are held higher.
Some of us are stronger than others in the heat.
Here's our protest at the back of the house. Here's our protest on the side of the house.
Here's somebody who decided to, I guess, give Jeff a hard time.
It's the lady in red.
Yeah,
I remember her. She comes walking by, waggling her finger, going, "You won't accomplish anything because God's going to roll over everything." And so I asked her, "Does that mean the plan is that your religion is going to take over our country?" And she says, "Why, I think that would be a wonderful thing." So I go, "Well, after that, are you going to take atheists like me and throw us in prison?" To which she responded, "I don't put people in prison. God does." Which I took as a yes. It's a yes, after Christianity takes over the United States, you will be throwing people in prison. You just won't be taking personal responsibility for it.
Well, have they taken personal responsibility for anything?
No, I kind of think their religion is about avoiding personal responsibility. But then I tried to explain to her that atheists and Christians alike have equal rights in this nation, to which she responded with the craziest thing that she said, which was, "You don't have the same rights as me because I went to Harvard and you can't do that without believing in God." And I wasn't aware that Harvard had a God oath requirement for
I wasn't either.
membership.
But with logic like that, I just can't believe she came from Harvard.
Yeah, well,
Or at least I won't be sending my
what
kids
she
there.
studied. Yeah, well, that was kind of fun.
Oh, here's another shot with more of us out there. We're really happy that even though a lot of people didn't participate, we got a lot of thumbs up and honks and cheers and supporters coming by at random while we were out there.
And once again, I have to point out, almost everybody on a bicycle gave us a thumbs up or a wave or a yell of support. I don't know why that is. I do not know what the connection is between religious freedom and riding bicycles, but maybe there is one.
And one nice jogger cheered us on each time she lapped the Capitol.
But yeah, we had a cop honk for us. That was nice. A number of bus drivers and lots of people just driving up Congress. They got to within visual distance of our signs, read what we had to say, and honked, waved, gave us their support. So it was very inspiring.
And later on in the day, a news crew stopped by to do an interview, which Jeff participated in. We don't get to see too much. He's actually over there with his camera.
Oh, that's, yeah, right.
He's getting ready to. And this is the mass of worshipers who were there for the actual prayer or around prayer time.
Yeah.
They actually only filled up that little small section on the other side of the main access to the Capitol. I think the tally was about 75 to 80 at any given time, and we had, what, 13 to 15 at different times?
I heard we had 12 to 18 at different times. So, it's not a question, though, of how many warm bodies you have on each side of the issue. The question is, what does the Constitution say? Because the Constitution is the government which says it doesn't matter if you're in a majority, you still can't walk over all over the rights of minorities. That's its job.
Definitely. All right.
That was a hoot. We didn't talk about the man in blue.
Well, yeah, I wasn't there for all of the man in blue things. I'm fine with it. We were actually down right in front of Congress Street for the majority of the protest, and there were a couple times where a few of us grabbed our signs and walked up top to where the service was going on, because that's what it was, and just quietly did a lap and came back around. And at one time I was actually stopped by a man who asked me, "Don't you think that's a little obnoxious?" And I was curious as to what he thought was obnoxious, because we hadn't actually said anything or come up while they were praying, or tried to make any fuss at all. We just walked up with our signs and walked right back down, and he stopped me over it. And I asked him, why would you think that's obnoxious? And he felt that because they had pre-planned to be there, anybody who showed up to object to this was being obnoxious. And I said, well, if you think I'm a little obnoxious when I feel that my rights may be in danger, that's something I can live with. you know. Evidently somebody else talked to him further, and there may have been, I don't know, some threat of knocking your block off by him towards one of our members, but he was, much like the rest of Earth, according to Douglas Adams, mostly harmless.
But that wasn't the guy in blue, was it? Was that the same guy?
Yeah, I believe it's the same guy who grabbed a sign and ran off.
So, well, here's what I heard about it. Just as I arrived at the protest, there was some chuckling going on amongst our protesters, saying some guy had just walked up and called us kooks. And about 15 minutes later, I was nudged by an elbow and somebody pointed, and across the street there's this guy in what I can only describe as a light blue leisure suit stalking up and down the sidewalk on the other side of the street. And they said, that's the guy. That's the guy that called us a kook. And I'm thinking, yeah, he's stewing over there. He's upset that we're voicing our legal right to object to how they're abusing our government, and he's stewing and trying to think of a better line than you're all kooks. So a little time later, one of us who carried a sign up toward the big religious festival on the Capitol steps. He suddenly gets a sign yanked away from him by a guy who he later describes as wearing a light blue suit. We assume it's the same guy. He didn't think of a better line. He came and stole one of our signs. So, congratulations, dude. You've got a nice little trophy now.
That's yeah, I heard about him. I think we may actually be talking about a couple different guys. Who knows?
That could be.
But yeah, one of our members chased him up trying to get the sign back. But, you know, if you're going to steal private property, I guess a church service is as good a time as any to do it. Okay. Well, if you didn't have anything specific, I guess we could go ahead and put the number up and talk about some news issues.
Can we have the phone number, please?
Anything specific you want to start with, or?
No, you go ahead.
Kansas debate over evolution becomes war of words. 80 years after the first famed monkey trial, a second one was underway Thursday in Kansas, giving critics of evolution a forum for attacking the theory. This little trial / debate is ongoing, and it was national and state science groups have boycotted the hearing because they viewed them as being rigged against evolution and pretty much pointless. It'd be like calling in a physicist to argue on behalf of gravity if you have a theory that angels are holding our feet to the ground. One of the council members, Connie Morris, said, "I was hoping this hearing would give me good hard evidence that I could repeat." And now we see the purpose. We're giving the uneducated school board some information to back the opinions that they already have. Evolution says that change in species can lead to a new species and that different species, including man and apes, have common ancestors. Intelligent design says some features of the natural world are best explained by intelligent cause. By mid-afternoon, the audience had thinned out in the 180-seat auditorium where the hearings were held. There weren't any protests, but over the lunch hour, the Kansas Highway Patrol brought in metal detectors for use outside the auditorium. One of the witnesses, Bill Harris, a professor of medicine from the University of Missouri in Kansas City, was asked, where in the standards does it say that teachers and students can't discuss criticisms of evolution? And he replied that he said it doesn't say that. I think it's implicit. And that was their objection. And Saturday there was also a note about this that some of them eventually admitted that they hadn't actually read the school board's curriculum on evolution. They were just, we know what it is. We're just objecting, I'm in favor of discussing criticisms of evolutionary theory because if the criticisms are credible, they can help you further define the evolutionary process. Anything that provides us with new information and more knowledge, I'm all for it. But that doesn't mean you're allowed to come up and change the meaning of science and start injecting your religious ideas as some sort of new option.
Right. That's the thing. It's a science class. So if you want to talk about criticisms, talk about science-based criticisms. The problem with intelligent design is it isn't science. Creationism wasn't science. Intelligent design is still not science. They've got no published papers. They've got and they've got no evidence to support their theory. All they've got is their criticisms. All they've got is finger pointing at things that are not absolutely locked down in stone, right? And that is true of almost all cutting-edge science. That the things we're learning, there are deeper, more details, more explanation that we can figure out with further study. That's the nature of science, to be like that. So while it's perfectly okay to talk about criticisms of a scientific theory in a science class, those need to be scientific criticisms, not just some person doesn't personally like the idea of evolution because they think it contradicts their religious views, and therefore that needs to be discussed. Their religious views don't have a place in science class.
Absolutely. This is all part of a wedge strategy, which has been, well, it's well documented, and the ultimate goal, as admitted by the creators of the strategy, of completely eliminating what they refer to as scientific materialism. Based on their timeline, we're currently in phase 3 of this strategy, and they've got this all plotted out. Phase 3 is where they moved into direct confrontations with advocates of materialist science through challenge conferences.
Science. One of the main voices in the whole idea of going after the materialism in science was this guy Philip Johnson, who is a lawyer, not a scientist. And his objection is this: materialism is a philosophical assumption, and creationism is a philosophical assumption. Therefore, it is unfair not to have creationism-based science if you're going to have materialism-based science, right? Because they're both philosophical positions. But that's like saying, you know, a pancake is food and a steak is food, and therefore it's unfair not to be able to get pancakes at a steakhouse. That's just playing with words, and it's irrelevant to the real issue. The real issue is that materialism is not part of science because somebody who was coming up with the rules of science sat down and said, "Oh, I know, let's exclude religion." Materialism is in science because when you do an experiment, in science, what you're trying to find out are what are the natural laws. That's what you're trying to find out. And if you do your experiment and you get a result and you don't know, or you can't make an assumption that the outcome you got was the result of the natural forces involved, if instead you insist that we have to have an active concern that mysterious supernatural forces might have been involved in producing that outcome, then you can't draw an outcome because you don't know whether your experiment came out the way it did because it's the natural forces or because God wanted it to be that way. Or actually you can. There is one way you can do this. It's what they do in other fundamentalist theocracies. When you do your experiment, you don't draw a conclusion until you've consulted with the clergy and they tell you what it is okay to conclude. That is where they're trying to take science. And it's just wrong.
Yeah, it's if we'd have had, you know, religious philosophy injected into science all this time, we wouldn't have any of the knowledge or discoveries that we've made so far, because, like you mentioned, you never know. You know, if I mix two chemicals together, is the result going to happen every time, or is, you know, maybe this time God's going to say, no, we're going to do something a little different.
It's worse than that because, you know, human beings are not perfect. Scientists are not perfect. Experimental equipment is not perfect. So if you repeat an experiment 1,000 times, you should expect a couple of them to come out anomalously because of mistakes or accidents that you don't even know what they are. But if you've got if you have to do your science on the basis of an assumption that supernatural forces are interfering with your experiments, then you've got to consider the possibility that those things that didn't come out the way you expected were not accidents, but in fact intentionally caused for some mysterious unknown reason by mysterious supernatural forces. And it just destroys science. You can't do science that way. You can't actually learn anything.
What they're trying to do is just a new twist on what they did to Galileo.
Right. Science is about odds, playing the odds. It's not about perfection. It can't be about perfection because, duh, scientists are human beings, and human beings aren't perfect. So you do experiments a bunch of times. You see what it is that usually happens the vast majority of times. If you don't get anything very consistent, then you figure out how come your experiment isn't coming out in some consistent way. You tinker with your experimental setup until you have isolated some specific natural law that you are investigating, and then you find out how that natural law operates. But statistically, right? Sure, you do an experiment 1,000 times, doesn't always come out exactly the same way. In very, in relatively rare instances, there are mistakes or accidents or misinterpretations or whatever, right? And scientists actually have mathematical formulas for factoring those things out. For saying, yeah, we know, it's not going to be perfect, but at what point is it enough that we can draw reasonable conclusions? And because science works that way, we have great big jet airplanes that fly around and mostly don't, suddenly come crashing down. Only in very rare cases where there's accidents.
Absolutely. A few other things going on this week. Well, actually, I'll go ahead and talk about this one because it kind of gets at me. U.S. Supreme Court Justice Scalia told an audience at Texas A&M University on Thursday, "Do you want a right to abortion? Created in the way that most rights are created in a democratic society. Persuade your fellow citizens and enact a law."
I thought we did enact a law.
Yeah.
Abortion is legal. What is he talking about?
His objection is to the judicial system actually having to get involved. The Roe v. Wade case is what set up the possibility for that.
Yeah.
He was using this as an example, but I brought it up right away because I'm forced to disagree with him, as I've done nearly every time that this brilliant legal mind has demonstrated that he's actually nothing of the kind. The scope of individual rights can't be determined by a majority of vote. That's the purpose of the Constitution, to protect the rights of the minority. And just because a specific right isn't explicitly called out in this 200-plus-year-old document doesn't mean it's not a protected right. And he seems to be, by his words, trying to imply that. He gave a speech about his type of jurisprudence, which he's judged as originalism. And originalists believe that the Constitution should be interpreted to mean exactly what it meant when it was adopted by the American people. This is a very minority view these days. Well,
plus,
thankfully.
Plus, there's a lot of evidence that a certain segment of our population wildly misinterpret the motivations of the Founding Fathers and the intentions of the Founding Fathers.
Well, his statement, is we need to interpret it the way it was when it was written. Well, if that's the case, then isn't that kind of an assumption that the document's perfect as is? Why would you need amendments? Why was there a provision in there to make amendments if we're only supposed to worry about the things, only the rights which are explicitly guaranteed are the ones guaranteed? That's essentially what he's claiming.
Oh my gosh, the whole Bill of Rights was something added on as amendments after the fact.
Yeah, I think he's actually trying to roll that in there to help make his case.
Well, those ones count because Thomas Jefferson was pushing for them?
Yeah.
But ones we have now don't count?
He didn't actually speak specifically to the Bill of Rights, but I think he's trying to roll those in there so that it helps strengthen his position.
Plus, the idea that it should be interpreted the way it was meant at the time means that he's asking us to turn a blind eye to any changes in the state of the world, in our culture, in anything since that time.
Yeah, it's patently absurd to assume that they got it all right way back then and no changes could make any difference at all to something like that. Now this is the guy who, among other things, when the Supreme Court overturned the sodomy laws in Texas, he wrote the dissenting opinion. And in his dissenting opinion, he basically attacked the other justices and said that the majority opinion was the product of a court that has largely signed on to the so-called homosexual agenda.
Oh, good grief.
There's those magic words again, homosexual agenda. What Justice Scalia doesn't seem to get is the homosexual agenda is actually that they just want to eliminate the injustices and inequalities, which people like Justice Scalia seem to want to promote, the homophobic agenda.
Right.
It's similar to the evil atheist conspiracy, and I'll tell you what the evil atheist conspiracy is. Our goal is for Justice Scalia and those who agree with him to stop being small-minded dicks.
Ooh.
It's, well, you know.
Yeah, okay, I think you can say that word.
I'm pretty sure I can, and if I can't, well, it'll be my last time I fill in for Ashley. But it's serious that he goes to Texas A&M, makes this big, long speech about, you know, what he believes in, why he gets, you know, grant approval. We're in a process now where there are plenty of other judges who are being objected to. We're trying to get new ones in. Justice Rehnquist is about ready to potentially kick the bucket and have to be replaced.
Yeah.
It's a dangerous time, and I think if people actually looked at what, you know, what is it that we're actually doing? What is it that these justices are saying, and who are we giving rights to? Who's actually controlling things? And I'm not talking, you know, tinfoil hat conspiracies. I'm just talking about what he's actually saying. During the question and answer period, after his remarks, one questioner identified himself as a member of the Young Conservatives of Texas, and the next as a member of the Texas A&M Young Republicans, at which Justice Scalia asked, "Am I totally preaching to the choir?"
Uh-huh.
Yeah, yes, Your Honor,
yeah.
you are.
Yeah.
The rest of us have moved beyond your petty little fears. It's this constant looking backwards to some kind of archaic ideal that sets them up as the chosen few, or strengthens their bigotry. I don't get it. I don't understand how somebody could actually be a Supreme Court justice and hold some of the views and publicize them in rulings.
There's one way that I think I can agree with him. He says that what we need to do is find out what the Constitution meant at the time it was originally ratified, right?
Right.
I think what we need to do is understand what the Founding Fathers meant when they put it together. Because they're going to have, when they wrote the Constitution, they were going to tailor it to their time. And they were smart enough to put in rules so that we could make changes to adjust it over time. But the principles behind it, principles like all citizens should be treated equal, even though women weren't and black people weren't at the time, right? It was correct of us to expand our interpretation of that document to take what was good about the philosophical views of the Founding Fathers and expand it as our nation grew and matured and became able to accept those people as equal citizens, right? I mean, that is the kind of stuff we should do. We should understand where the Founding Fathers were coming from. They wanted a nation where everybody had equal rights. They wanted a nation where no religious views got special treatment. That's what they were after.
Yes, absolutely. As a quick reminder, we are live. It's May 8th, 2005. The number's up on your screen. You can feel free to call in and talk about anything we've talked about so far, or if you had something else you wanted to speak about, feel free to give us a call. And also, after the show's over, we'll be going to Chili's at corner I-35 and 183. We'll probably be there around 6:45, and any atheist-friendly people are welcome to join us.
We do need callers, so please call in.
Yeah.
So, now what? You got more?
I've got more stuff, but maybe you can offend people quicker than I can.
I don't know. You got...
In.
No, I'd have to dig something out. You go first.
I know that here in Austin, the State House of Representatives voted 85 to 55 to approve a bill that would forbid sexy cheers and give the Texas education.
Well, then what's the point?
Yeah, that's my question.
That is the job of cheerleaders.
It gives the Texas Education Agency...
What, do you want them wearing burqas?
Oh, it's not outfits. It's not outfits. It's authority to punish schools that allow overtly sexual or suggestive routines.
Okay, I'll tell you what. they'll do no routines at all. They'll just stand there, but they'll be completely naked. How's that?
Oh.
Is that all right?
I think by this new law, that would actually be okay. Although somebody could probably interpret that as overtly sexual. That's the part of the problem is there's nothing in here and nothing in the bill that would suggest what qualifies. It'll be left to the individual schools, I assume. State Representative Al Edwards, a Houston Democrat, sponsored the bill, saying, "People are calling and telling me how disgusting it is to see sexually suggestive routines on the part of marching units or cheerleaders." Marching it. How many marching bands do sexy things? I'm going to go to the wrong football games or something.
Well, you know, that homosexual agenda is that the male marching band, the guys with the trombones now, need to be doing sexually explicit things with them.
This one time.
They know it's coming because the homosexuals are trying to take over. There's no limits to how far they will go.
Democratic State Representative Symphonia Thompson said, "I think the Texas Education Agency has enough to do making sure our kids are better educated, and we're wasting our time with 1, 2, 3, 4, we can't shake it anymore."
Oh, boy. Do we really want to be living in a nation where we have roving bands of morality police?
Bill Maher made a comment, actually, on the cheerleader bill Friday night. And he said, "What's wrong with these people? Don't they know that that's where we train our next generation of strippers?" So, kudos to Bill, but
this is exactly the kind of thing that went on in Afghanistan under the Taliban. They had morality police that went up and down the streets, and if they thought that a woman was walking suggestively or not wearing her burqa correctly or not showing proper deference or violating any of their other little taboos, religious taboos, then they would, if she was lucky, they would give her a good talking to. If she was not lucky, they'd take her to prison or kill her on the spot. I mean, that is where these right-wing Christian fundamentalists are trying to take us with proposals like stopping cheerleaders from being sexy.
If somebody's stuck in the 50s with the pom-poms and every cheer was, just a quick pep rally and sit back down, and things have changed a little bit. And I don't know. I'm not a parent. I don't often go to the high school football games. Maybe there's an outbreak of crazy, sexy cheers. But if so, somebody should have called me so that I could go down to the football game, because otherwise I'm not going. Let's go ahead and take a caller here on line 1. We've got William. You there, William?
Hi, yeah.
How you doing?
You guys are good. How are you?
Pretty good. What do you got for us?
Yeah, you guys talking about the homosexual agenda a lot. I think maybe that homosexual agenda is something you guys got going between yourselves. Looks like you got a little homosexual agenda happening between the two of y'all.
Thanks.
Thanks for your call, idiot.
All right.
We're not gay, but if we were, it wouldn't be any of your business.
And
it wouldn't be an insult for you to point it out. So...
and that's part of the reason I let you ramble on, because you think you're insulting me, but you're really not. I don't have any problem with it at all. What I do have a problem with is people marginalizing the rights of the others, because rights of any group, whether they be homosexuals, blacks, atheists, or some minority religions, just because, we don't agree with that, God says that's bad.
Did you not just hear us slobbering all over the idea of sexy cheerleaders?
Yeah.
Good grief, caller. Clearly, at most, we're bisexual.
Well, the only
clearly. But that is. Do people not have better things to do in our country than care about other people's sexual orientations? Yeah. Do people not have jobs to deal with, or families to deal with, or actual important personal responsibilities of their own to deal with? They have to go around and get their thrills pointing fingers at other people's particular views, other people's particular practices. It's none of your business.
Yeah, it's I don't understand it, but thanks for calling. Let's try line 2. We've got Gilbert.
Yes.
You there?
My comment regards many things, not just about the sexy cheerleaders. Well, cheerleaders have always been dancers. It's been a part of their routines to entertain at halftime. But, you know, basically what I want to say about our government, I don't feel we live in a democracy anymore. I feel that over the years our government is becoming very communistic. I really do. And, like, just this past weekend, they had the Texas Shredder Cup Bodybuilding Classic. Well, I'm surprised somebody didn't want to say that, you know, or say something about that, about the men and women that are getting posing for that.
So wait, you're
you know, this type of thing. But
you're suggesting
back to the cheerleaders, I don't feel that we have democratic rights anymore. Our nation has become communistic.
You're suggesting that communists are against breasts but in favor of large pectoral muscles? And I don't understand what's communist about. I mean, I certainly think it's inconsistent to complain on the one hand about sexy cheerleaders but not complain about sexy bodybuilders. I think it's inconsistent. How is that communistic, though? You think George Bush is a communist?
I feel that America is slowly being stripped of democratic. You've got all these other organizations and people that are coming in. And if you've ever heard of Alex Jones, and I'm sure you have,
I'm afraid
he has brought a lot of this out, that we're under what he calls the mark of the beast.
Okay, Alex Jones has his own show, and we don't need his kooks calling ours. Thanks for your call, sir.
All right.
Okay. You know, there's real things going on in our world that we need to actually be concerned about. Can we please take off our tinfoil hats?
Yeah, I don't know. Occasionally, I can't personally stand to listen to Alex Jones. I'm sure somewhere in there may be a valid point on occasion, but it just doesn't hold my interest and kind of makes me a little wary of a few things.
Yeah.
Let's go to John on line 3. You there, John?
Hi, John.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I really enjoy your show, and the reason I'm calling is because I'm a regular listener, and one thing that I'm a little bit concerned with is that as atheists, we seem a little bit defensive about Christians and God believers. My point is that in growing in my belief or my disbelief in God, one of the things that has interested me is why people do believe in God. And I've read several books, the Pascal Boyer's Religion Explained and Why God Won't Go Away by Newberg and DeKilly. And I think that a great part of why I don't believe in God is understanding why people do believe in God and why that's a mistaken concept. And you know, there are lots of reasons why people believe in God, and it seems to be sort of maybe not a natural thing, but you know, an inherited thing from our parents and our heritage. But you know, it's not scientifically sound to believe in God. I don't believe in God, but I think as an atheist that it's important for us to look at why people do believe in God, and you know, that would probably make our belief or disbelief in God even stronger. I've just listened to your comments on that.
Okay, thanks.
I don't know that well, I suppose there could be degrees of disbelief, but I pretty much am in the camp of I disbelieve, and I don't think I could possibly disbelieve any more than I do now. You talk about us primarily focusing on Christians, and that's true, and it's not that, well, it's not, I personally, it may be because some of us find it more objectionable than others, but the fact of the matter is in the United States, Christians represent 70% of the population, and the majority of right-wing fundamentalists, the majority of people who are trying to marginalize our rights and limit what we can and can't do and take over the nation as a theocracy, they fall into the Christian camp. So by default, they end up with more of our attention than, you know, Muslim, Taoism, Muslims, whatever.
Yeah, I'd like to add also that this show has a purpose, and the purpose is not to try to talk other people into not believing. We're not about converting anybody into atheists. We could have a show like that, I guess, and that might be interesting, but that's not the primary purpose of this show. We talk about our reasons for not believing, which I'm personally extremely clear on. I talk about them when people ask. And that's fine. And if that sounds defensive, I would argue it's not really. It's that when we're talking about trying to, when we're trying to present our viewpoints in a way where we're educating people about that atheists are not like Satanists, that we're not baby killers, we're not evil, we're not any of these things that they like to say about us from the pulpit. That's not, it's not primarily about trying to argue that our arguments are correct. Oh, it's more about, look, we have reasons that for why we don't believe. It is a personal choice. We have a right to make that personal choice, and we're not out to hurt you. And yeah, you know, occasionally we get into debates with callers about whether it makes sense to believe or not. And when we do that, we are defending our position. But what we're not doing is we're not trying to tell that caller that they should not believe whatever it is they believe. One time, I remember one time, we actually advised a caller that we thought it would be healthier for her to stop being a Christian, because after our talk with her, she had so little self-esteem and clearly it had been taken away by her religion, that we made that comment, and I'm not sure that we should have, but one time. I hope that explains.
Well, it sort of does. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, sure. You're still
okay. But what I'm trying to say is, I understand your answers here, but what I'm saying is to be an atheist and to have the stand that we have as atheists, I think it's important for us to understand why people have their religious beliefs. You know, why it is that they believe. Is there part of the brain, like some psychology people say? I understand there's a big heritage for belief, but in not believing, we have to think, wait a minute, why do these people believe? Is something gone wrong? Is it something they've been misled by? I don't believe, and they do, and why is it that they do? And I'm not trying to convert anybody, but I'm just trying to understand what the psychological makeup is, or the inherited part of it is, because it's important to me to know to rationalize my own disbelief, to understand that part of why other people do believe.
Right. I think part of the question may actually be too complex. Depending on, you could go to 100 different people and find out that their particular reason for believing may be different than everybody else you talk to. For me personally, from what I've read and looked at, a lot of it seems to come from the way you were raised, which explains why there's more Christians here and more Muslims in other countries. It's when your mom and dad tell you something, you're going to tend to assume it's right. And children are actually evolutionary programmed to accept information, good or bad, because typically you're going to be getting good information, and some bad creeps in. Yeah, I don't think the question is necessarily unimportant. I would never say that. Knowing why people believe is always important. It's just not really the focus of what we're doing up here.
Okay. Well, thank you for your answer.
Thanks for calling.
All right.
Yeah, I am of course fascinated by the question of why other people believe, but not so much. Even outside of the show, I'm not so much fascinated by why people believe for the sake of being able to talk them out of it. That has happened a couple of times, that in the course of explaining my own point of view, the other person has said, okay, yeah, you're right, that makes sense, I don't believe anymore. It's very rare, every once in a while, and it feels kind of good, but I'm not doing it for that. What I'm interested in is being an equal citizen in this country with equal rights. And to the extent that I'm interested in why other people believe, it's because I need to understand where they're coming from in order to explain myself to them.
And see, we may agree. I may be slightly different here. I'm definitely in agreement with Jeff. My big thing isn't so much trying to convince people that their beliefs are wrong or convert people towards an atheistic viewpoint. My purpose for being here and doing the show and participating in things like this is just to provide information. Let you make up your own mind. And if you come out at the end of the show with an even stronger belief in the belief system you had before, that's perfectly fine with me. But at least we gave you the opportunity to think about some things, to look at a position from a slightly different perspective. And, ultimately the choice is your own. I wouldn't be an atheist or on the TV show today if it hadn't been for people who had been vocal and active about explaining why they believed what they believed, why they could no longer be Christians, why they were agnostics, atheists, etc. Those are important to me, and in a way there's a little bit of payback, because it's nice to be able to offer information to people that they might not be able to get. They're definitely not going to be getting a lot of information that we give out here at church. And if the religious right has their way, they won't be getting it at school either. So that's part of what we're doing.
I want to sort of expand on this a little bit too. There have been politicians recently making and I can't remember the name of the politician, which is probably for the best, making statements like, our country is under an assault by the secularists, by the atheists, trying to turn the United States into an atheist nation. That there was a quote that we have a pervasive culture of atheism in the United States right now. I look at that and just shake my head. I know what a pervasive culture of atheism would look like, right? It would be big signs in courtrooms saying there is no God. It would be rationalism classes in public schools. It would be, Christians getting their paranoid fantasy of having to conduct their worship services in little hidden away bunkers, like they try to imagine that things would be. Not because anybody would be gunning for them, but just because it would be like, visiting a porn shop. People are embarrassed of that, and so they would act embarrassed. That is what a pervasive culture of atheism would be like. Just not having our culture constantly awash in God references is not atheism. Atheism is consciously thinking about the question of God, consciously deciding that you don't believe, and consciously explaining why. That's not going on in our culture, hardly at all. There's little isolated groups of atheists like ours, and that's about it.
Yeah, it's funny to me when the religious right and other organizations who represent the majority, who are actively trying to push their morals and their beliefs on everybody else, also try to play themselves up as the persecuted minority. It's absolutely silly. One of the stories that I pulled up was in Greenbelt, Maryland. A federal judge on Thursday prevented a school from implementing a controversial new sex education program. The judge heard arguments on Thursday, and I was curious because I saw the words controversial sex education program, so I wanted to see what it was. The U.S. District Judge agreed with the two groups that filed the lawsuit, who said that the curriculum's frank discussion of homosexuality amounted to preference of one religion over another, by taking the viewpoint held by some faiths that gay and lesbian lifestyles are acceptable. So you have people now, because this new sex education program doesn't outright condemn homosexuality, it's now discrimination against those religions who do condemn it.
Wouldn't it amount to the preference of one religion over the other if it took the viewpoint held by some faiths that gay and lesbian lifestyles are unacceptable?
Yes, it would, and that's the thing. They want it to say the opposite and not have to recognize that they're now discriminating against other people.
Frankly, talking about things that are not illegal is not religious discrimination.
Yeah.
It's just not, and it can't be made religious discrimination just because you don't like it.
Not only that, but the course is, parents are allowed to opt their kids out of the course. It's, I don't know, things like this I hear all the time. I don't want to, spend the entire show talking about, the rights of homosexuals, because it's not specifically an atheist issue, but it's also not a Christian issue.
It's just a great example of the kind of thing that is, in our opinion, going wrong in our country because of people in trying to legislate their religious views on the rest of us. That's why we talk about it.
Well, the thing is, if you can make a claim like this, you can also claim that teaching evolution is discriminating against your religion because the view conflicts. The fact of the matter is that the true nature of homosexuality, the true age or physical attributes of the earth, and the true application of evidence of evolutionary theory have no relationship to what you believe. Your belief has no bearing on the truth. You know, just because you believe it doesn't make it so. And to try and then claim that you're being discriminated against because a school is teaching science, and in this case, a neutral, non-condemning look at homosexuality, to claim that that's discrimination against your religion, that's just absurd. I say that a lot, but there's a lot of absurd things that we're dealing with. Let's go on to Carl. You there, Carl?
Good evening, fellas.
How you doing?
I have a few questions, comments.
Go right ahead.
Okay. Well, I'm very curious where y'all getting your information from. I get my information from the Holy Bible. If you got any books that compare to that?
I have lots of books. Which information specifically are you wanting to know where we got it?
The Atheist. It sounds mind-boggling and absurd to me.
Actually, the majority of things that led me towards atheism are actually in the same book that you're talking about. But I'm not quite sure what you're implying. Are you implying that we need to have some kind of book to tell us what to believe?
Yeah, we don't have a holy book that tells us what we are supposed to think without us thinking about it, because we don't think that's the way to figure out what you ought to think. You see, so we don't take our atheism from on high from some ancient book that just said we shouldn't believe. We think that's a ridiculous way of deciding what to believe.
It ain't just a book, though. It's the God's Word.
How do you know?
You can prove this?
Yes, I talk to him daily.
You talk to God? Yeah, does he talk back?
Indeed, he does.
In words? Or you just imagine what he thinks?
I don't know what you're saying.
Well,
we don't know what you're saying.
Do you hear the voice, or do you just feel it?
He guides me. He guides me in my day-to-day life.
How? Does he give you a map, or?
I don't use
You get little notes, post-it notes from God? Well, how does he guide you?
Does your atheist God give you some notes?
There is no atheist God.
No, atheism is the lack of a belief in a God. We don't have a God. That's the whole point of atheism.
Well, that's insane. Where do we come from? Where do we go when we die? If it ain't no heaven, then it ain't no hell, and it ain't no atheist if we ain't alive.
Huh? There could be. Well, we could be alive without there being a heaven and a hell. What does that have to do with anything?
Where do we go? Where do y'all go?
Well, evidence suggests our bodies stop working, we stop being alive, and our physical remains go into the ground or into an incinerator if we're being cremated. What's the big mystery?
So it's all over then. It's all over.
Yeah. I mean, why do you think that you have some reasonable expectation that there's more than that? Where'd you get that idea?
Life? How did we get here? There's got to be a mission, my good man.
Why?
Why not is a better question.
Well, I mean, lack of evidence that there's some divine plan would be a good reason to assume that there isn't.
I didn't follow you.
Okay. Well, I mean,
there's no evidence that there's any meaning or higher power ascribing a meaning to life.
Do y'all believe in them ghosts?
No.
No.
Do y'all believe in aliens?
No. It depends how you ask the question. If you ask, do I think we've been visited, my answer is no. If you ask, do I think that there's a decent chance that life has evolved independently on other planets in the universe somewhere, then my answer is yes.
I bet they
just because the same natural laws operate everywhere. Huh?
I bet they're reading the same Holy Bible that I do.
Well, when they show up,
we'll ask them. And if they say, well, we never heard of him, if the aliens land and they say, no, we never heard of your God or your Jesus, will you stop being a Christian?
Okay, well, I'll accept that question, but what if they come here?
You've accepted the question, but I'd like an answer. Will you answer it?
No.
You wouldn't. You won't answer it, or you wouldn't stop being a Christian?
I'll answer it. My God is telling me that I am a Christian till I die, whether or not the aliens know about them. Now,
so why did you bring it up? What difference do aliens make then, if you're going to believe anyway? I mean, don't put these little questions in front of us if they're completely irrelevant.
But what if the aliens come bearing the crosses and showing the Bible? What if will y'all change and say, "Oh my God, I was wrong"?
That would be pretty impressive evidence. It's too bad for your side of the argument that nothing like that ever happens or ever has happened so far. But yeah, I'd be impressed, and I would give your religion another look if the aliens landed and they were Christians. I sure would.
Have your Bible prepared, my good man. Have your Bible ready.
All right, dude. Thanks for calling. Wow.
Yeah, I'm with you on the aliens, that the likelihood of aliens existing somewhere else and evolving somewhere else in the universe is high, considering, you know.
Well, if there isn't a God, then we had to have been the result of natural laws, and the natural laws are going on throughout the universe, and there's a whole lot of universe, so it seems obvious. But there's no evidence whatsoever of any kind of God that created stuff. At best, there are excuses for continuing to believe in the God in the face of the utter lack of evidence, and in fact evidence to the contrary. Yeah.
I'm with you. All right, let's go to Tad. You there, Tad?
Yeah, hey, eyebrows and comb over. I think that first call he won was a real man, and y'all are obviously gay lever.
Wow, the Christian love is just pouring down from above on us today. It's inspiring, really. Yeah,
if there are Christians out there, and you don't like somebody like that representing, although to be honest, he never claimed to be a Christian, but that's typically who we get calling objecting with things like that. That it's just pointless. I don't. Exactly what was your purpose? Let's go on to Chuck. You there, Chuck?
Yeah, I'm here.
How you doing, Chuck?
I want to the guy that was talking earlier about why he wonders why religious people still believe in God. Yeah. I think ultimately, besides all the conditioning for thousands of years that they've gone through, I think it really is a fear of the reality that this is it. Mentally, that's hard to grasp if you think about it. You know what I'm saying? For a lot of people to mentally grasp the fact that once you're dead, that's it. There's nothing else after that. That you're like a battery. That's it. Your juices are gone and you're dead. You can't handle it.
I think you're dead on. I personally think it completely sucks that death is the end. I think that's horrible, right? Yeah. But I don't shy away from unpleasant facts.
It's because it's reality,
Right. But if you don't like the idea that we have a roughly 70-year lifespan and then we're dead, and if you can't be satisfied by the fact that already in the last several centuries, average lifespan in civilized nations has risen from about 25 years to about 75 years. If that's not enough for you, then the thing to do is support scientific research into life extension. Because if there are no souls, and if there is no God, and if there is no heaven and hell, then eternal life is an engineering problem. It's a biology problem. And potentially solvable. But you don't get to solve things like that if you're cowering in a corner saying, oh my gosh, we can't trust what the science says because it's depriving us of our happy little lie.
All your money to the man that's preaching the word to you so that he can buy a nice new big car and give you nice new brand new books. You have no idea where the originality came from.
In exchange for lying to you about the fact that you're going to be dead inside of, 120 years tops.
Yeah, probably the only really good thing about the fact that we will die is if you can come to terms with that and accept that this is the one shot you're going to get at life.
This is it, man.
You can lead a much more full life and do the things that matter and not waste it away.
Yep.
well, I don't have to waste my Sundays going to church anymore, for one thing. Not that that's the only argument in favor of atheism by a long shot, but it is. Once you actually come to grips with that and accept that this is your one shot at life, and you need to do the things that you enjoy and live it to the fullest. And
yeah, but that's a big fear for these people, and it's also a big fear for them to set aside the crutch of, hey, my life's going great, thank God, or, oh man, I can't believe that just happened to me. Why am I being punished? Hey, you know what? Accept responsibility for the decisions you've made in your life. Whether it turns out good or bad, no higher divine power gave you the good luck or the bad luck. It's time to start accepting responsibility of the fact that things happen, things are here because they're here, and it's all just a random leaf in the wind. You can't control it, and it's not being controlled for you. Accept it. Be happy, go on, spread that good aura, and, life will be good for as long as you're here.
Yeah,
and don't worry about what's after, because it's not there.
slight disagreement. Science is a way that we have developed that does give us some control over what happens. So it's not, I don't completely agree that we should just, sit back and take everything as it comes and not try to get things to go our way.
Bettering life is cool, what I'm saying? I'm not saying let's not, make life better and all that. I'm just saying instead of spending all this negative energy with all this, stuff that religion brings everything down and mucks everything up, turn that around and put it towards more positive things. Like you're saying, instead of spending money on the churches, let's try and find a way to make our lifespans longer,
Yeah. For those people that want that sort of thing, the way to approach that would be through real solutions to the problem.
Yeah.
Not through imaginary friends and imaginary heavens and hells. It doesn't solve anything.
Handle the thought, It's just too mentally. I had a friend that was reading a book that I gave him, and he just sat on my floor for like 2 days, smoking a cigarette and staring at nothing. After realized that maybe what I've been telling him might actually be the truth, and I couldn't get anything out of him for 2 days. He just sat there smoking a cigarette, shaking his head, going, "Man."
And then what? How'd that turn out? Just curious.
He's an atheist now as well. I think he's, I haven't really talked to him for a couple of years. He's down in Houston, but
you didn't pressure him, did you? Because we don't believe in that.
Nope, nothing ever like that. We used to have discussions all the time, religious discussions. He and I did. You know what I'm saying? And we never got mad at each other, but they were really, really good, deep discussions. And I don't know, eventually, just like I said, after I started giving him more and more evidence of the way I believed, eventually, just like, I guess, he just accepted it one day. And like I said, it was just kind of a mental thing for him to really realize the reality of it all,
I have friends that are similar to that. And a lot of times what it is, it's with them being a Christian in some cases, they're actively trying to save my soul and convert me to Christianity. Well, I've already been there once, so I'm not going to be falling back into that. But they're so adamant about it that in defending yourself and explaining why you disagree on certain issues, they'll actually begin questioning. And I've seen it happen that their strong-willed desire to bring another soldier to Christ ends up in them questioning their faith more than they would have.
I've seen it myself a few times. So, but yeah, I just pretty much, like I said, I just called one to kind of help that one guy out that wondered why people still believe in God. And like I said, basically it just boils down to a thing of being too afraid to accept that there's no afterlife. This is it. So make the best of what you got it.
Yeah, I definitely think
you guys have a good one, all right?
Thanks a lot.
Yeah,
talk to you later.
I've been having an email exchange with a guy who wrote to the email address for our Internet Audio Show, which, did we mention that at the beginning?
No, actually I didn't. Internet
Audio Show, the Non-Prophets, is on Saturdays from 2 to 3:30 Central Time, and it's carried by the Atheist Network online at www.atheistnetwork.com. Yeah, and we just had a show yesterday, so the next one will be in 2 weeks. Yeah, that says the next show is. That was the wrong date. But anyways, this guy wrote in, and we've exchanged emails back and forth. And what is really impressing me about him, not in a good way, is that he's got no standards for what he's willing to do to try to get me to rejoin the Christian religion. He has, he's literally said that even though I don't believe in God, I ought to stop promoting atheism and start promoting Christianity because there's more money in it. nice greed motive for being a Christian. And that is, you know, it's every single letter is 3 or 4 new angles he's trying out on me. And I keep telling him, dude, it's a question of what makes sense to believe. Because I know, as unfair as life is sometimes, my best shot at living a good life is a clear understanding of what is actually going on, and so that I can make the best decisions that I can. Period. If you can't, you know, don't give me Bible verses and expect me to be impressed, because I don't believe in your God, and so I don't think the Bible has any special authority.
Right.
You know, it's astonishing that for them, it's just about getting you to convert at all costs.
Yeah, and if you're going to try and base it at all on any kind of rational argument, the first thing you have to do is provide some evidence that does not come from the book.
Yeah.
Something outside of the Bible.
Independent confirmation, that's called.
You know, I can write a book that says anything. Yeah. And what about the other religions that are in books that are older than yours in some cases, or at least on tablets? You mentioned, we're talking about, or you mentioned briefly about life-extending science. I don't know if you saw it, but I did catch a quick news blurb on Google the other day that the free radical theory of aging, they've now been able to demonstrate in mice that by blocking those, they extended the life of the mice 20%, which was 4.5 months. And that came out yesterday. So there's some progress along that front.
Yeah, aging is a complex thing. I mean, if free radicals were all there was to it, then blocking free radicals should have made the mice immortal. So that's just evidence that there are multiple things, multiple reasons why people age and die. I'm talking physical, biological reasons here, not magical reasons. Yeah. But yeah, the research is happening and progress is being made.
Yeah, they did note that not only did the mice live 4.5 months longer, but they had healthier hearts at the end of the life as well. So.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I am in fact what they call a transhumanist. Have you heard of that?
I did know that, but I don't know enough about it.
No, we're not going to do it on this show.
Yeah.
Maybe next time I'm on, I'll do a big transhumanism rant.
Let's go on to Tad. Are you there, Tad?
No Tad.
No Tad.
Hello?
Whoop. Call back, they'll get you right through again.
Wasn't that the guy we hung up on before?
I think so. I don't know if this changed. Let's try Tim. Tim, are you there?
Hey.
How you doing?
Pretty good, actually. I originally wanted to call up about the Bible thumper.
Which one?
But so much has been talked about since then. Although I would like to say that anyone who's going to take such a drastic view of the world as to believe it's 4,000 years old and that everything in the Bible is as it is written, they should back their views up with every piece of information that they can find, so that they can support it in any kind of conversation. It makes sense.
Well, they try. They actually do try. But the result is a whole bunch of really bad science. Because you don't do science by deciding what conclusion you need to reach and then grabbing getting just the information which seems to support that conclusion. That's not how science is done. Science is you have a idea that you want to test, and then you look at all the evidence and see if the vast weight of all the evidence supports the thing you're testing. Right. And then you decide to believe it.
And in fact, if I understand things correctly, nothing is actually ever proven in science. There's just there's a preponderance
not with
of
a capital P, absolute, like omniscience kind of proof. No, because it's not physically possible.
Yeah.
There's a degree of certainty involved, you know, with the, you know, whether you're talking about gravity or evolution or whatever.
Mm-hmm. It's all about playing the odds. Right?
Really,
it's not terribly unethical to play really long odds if you're down at the racetrack and you just have your money and it's your decision what you want to do with it. But if you take all your family's money or all of your nation's money or all of your culture's money or all of the world's money and you put it on the long shot, the thing, the possibility that is extremely unlikely because there's no evidence to support the idea that it's going to come through, that is unethical, I think.
Yeah. Well, I guess ethical, a lot of people have different views on what is ethical or moral.
Okay, I'm sure they do.
But responsibility, people tend to view the word responsibility with more uniformity, and I think as such, it could be better described, I think, as irresponsible.
Fair enough. I'll adopt that word. I think it's irresponsible if you're talking about anything more than just your personal beliefs, it's irresponsible to drag the rest of your fellow men along with you on some long shot that the evidence doesn't support.
That said, I think that we should occasionally teach long shots in school. Although I think we could solve the whole creation thing by showing the movie The Matrix in science class and being
giving as an alternative to creationism.
Well, to explain that there are other ways that things could have come about, and that we don't necessarily. It's kind of like it's the crash course in philosophy for the masses and for the young.
Okay. I'm not sure I agree with that, but okay.
Well, it would take care. It would take care of a lot of the views that this country has that creationism should be taught, and I really can't. I can come up with my own reasons, my own personal beliefs why it shouldn't be taught, but I can't truly justify it. I can justify why evolution needs to be taught.
I can tell you why creationism can't be taught. It can't be taught because the Supreme Court's ruled that it can't, which is why they've repackaged it and renamed it intelligent design.
Right.
And they're trying to come in, if you can't get in through the front door, sneak in through a window.
Right.
That's exactly
creationism has been ruled in court to be religion and not science. And now we just have to go through this whole thing again because they have repackaged creationism as intelligent design, and it needs to be ruled religion and not science, because it is religion and it's not science.
Well, that's a lesson learned from the era of the politically correct terminology. I think it's still creationism. You're right. They have just repackaged it, and it needs to be looked at it as creationism.
Yeah, those things I was saying about the
court to have just written it off entirely. I mean,
pardon me?
Many religions view some form of creator. It's not really just a Christian or a Muslim or Christian Judeo viewpoint.
Yeah. But it doesn't matter. If it's religions that view things that way and science that doesn't, then it's religion and not science. Even if it's maybe not limited to specific religions, right?
True.
You know what I'm saying? It's not just Christianity we're talking about. It's religion. All right. Anyway.
But there's religion and philosophy are very much hand-in-hand ways of coming about answers for the world. And philosophy and science are, again, cousins in nature. And that said, religion and science really, once upon a time, they were both ways of explaining the world. Since then, one has been perverted towards the greed of man, and the other has been perverted towards the arrogance of man. And really, we see so much division between the two that we can't actually come up with any answers anymore. All we can come up with is...
Boy, I quite disagree with what you're saying.
Yeah, science and religion, okay, sure, they're both trying to explain the world around us. The difference is that one of them is credible, testable, provable, and the other one's fantasy.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, until somebody actually provides evidence.
Religion in its Christianity or any deist philosophy dictates that there's something greater than you.
Yeah.
But just the fact that it's religious, you can brush your teeth religiously. You can, in fact, go to school religiously every day, 8 hours a day, every week, for 6 months of the year.
I think you're using a slightly different definition of the word.
In any case, what's your point? I mean, the issue is, when we're talking about the evolution question, right? Science and religion are different things, right? So there are different ways of coming up with answers. Do you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay. In science class, we should be using the science ways of coming up with answers. Do you agree with that?
We should teach empirical method and theory and...
So that's a yes?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, that ends the whole question of creationism or intelligent design in science class, because those things are not science.
If you want to teach it in a comparative religion.
The next question is, I'm getting from you, though I'm having trouble understanding where you're going with this. It sounds like I'm getting from you that that there is a scientific realm, and then there is some other realm that is also valid that religion talks about. Is that what you're saying?
No, because really all of the supernatural aspects of religions, I think,
so
they are the manipulations of fear by the greedy.
Then are you saying that there is the scientific realm and then a philosophical realm?
Essentially, it really, I see it 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 years ago, back maybe in the days of Enoch, before, you know, as a biblical scholar would say, the fall of the Temple of Solomon or something. I think that it was all really one and the same. You know, the era of Socrates and Aristotle, where it hadn't yet diverged and then been manipulated to the points that it is today.
Yeah, my understanding is that the big divergence between what the ancient Greek philosophers did, that is sometimes called science, and what the people in Europe, and I cannot name you the specific historical individual. Maybe Matt can back me up on this. When the official dawn of modern science occurred, the difference is modern science involves actually having hands-on experience, doing hands-on testing, and the Greek philosophers were all about just thinking about stuff and not getting your hands dirty. And the change there is important and valid and good. While it's impressive to see how far people can get just by thinking about stuff, it is in fact better, if you want to understand what's really going on, to go ahead and look at the actual facts and do actual testing and really get the truth.
True, but to create some of the more out-of-the-box hypotheses that could actually lead to the breakthroughs that have defined modern science, at least, if not philosophy for all ages, one must be able to imagine what facts they can find, then create a hypothesis.
Sure.
Hmm?
So what? So are you suggesting that in science you're not allowed to imagine that there might be supernatural things?
Well,
you're criticizing that?
I'm criticizing the Judeo-Christian view of supernatural things, and that it's
okay. I think this call is going on way too long.
Yeah,
I'm having a lot of trouble understanding what points you're trying to make, and we're going to thank you for your call and move on.
I've been developing recently.
Okay. Feel free to call back later when you've got it more pinned down.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah,
sorry about that.
I didn't mean to. I actually hit it early. I apologize. I wasn't trying to cut you off just that second. Yeah, I'm not quite sure. I didn't follow either. For a minute, it sounded like, you know, before we had a scientific method, everything was pretty much the same, and then there's a mix of philosophy and science. I don't know that. Maybe he was just commenting, you know.
I guess. I try to understand where people are coming from, and sometimes it just doesn't happen.
Yeah. All right, let's go on to Siobhan. Are you there? Hello?
Yeah, I just want to say I'm a good Christian woman. I just went to church, all right, and I know that the Bible teaches that you men are false prophets, all right.
Well, what exactly are we prophesying,
ma'am? Excuse me, ma'am. I have an internet audio show that I do in addition to this show, and it's called The Non-Prophets. We say we are not prophets, so please don't accuse us of being false ones. We don't pretend to be prophets at all.
But the Bible says that any man that talks about God and he says he don't exist, it means that he's a false prophecies.
Okay, well, then your Bible is wrong, because we're not prophets at all.
And it's wrong in a lot of other places, too.
Everybody knows the Bible is right.
No, not everybody knows everybody.
Everybody.
Not everybody. Okay, Hindus know that the Bible is right? Mm-hmm. No, they don't. Buddhists?
Maybe. They have that thing that is like the Bible, only called something else.
Yeah, but it's not the Bible. And if you showed them the Bible, they'd say, oh, no, thank you. We don't believe in that. We believe in this other thing that we've got.
Well, what God do you believe in?
You know only about a third of the people on the earth are Christians. You are aware of that, right?
No.
Yeah, that's a fact.
I know that you were rude to, I don't know, that caller that called up 3 times ago. You know, he good Christian man. He good man. I heard him.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for calling.
We don't want to insult Christians particularly.
Hey, send me an email. I'll give you a list of verses.
But you know, if you, you know, it's your job to do a good job being representatives for your religion, and we don't make you come across as, you know, kind of silly.
Let's try this. Bobby, you there?
Yes, sir. How y'all doing today?
Pretty good. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm gonna apologize for any true believer in God, because any true believer isn't gonna go around and kill millions of Jews people. Any believer in God isn't gonna start wars, because in the Bible it says that. So it's like they are twisted in their mind, and if you're a believer, how can you just go out and just do stuff and think that you're gonna go to heaven? And you could just,
I don't know.
They made up religion. I don't know who made up religion. It's just so twisted. I mean, either you believe in this or you're wrong. That's not godly.
Okay.
To call y'all and tell y'all false prophets and condemn y'all, that's not godly.
Okay. We would just say it's not terribly polite and certainly not very rational.
That's not godly. I don't think God would.
The word godly doesn't mean anything to us, because we don't believe in one of those.
And I wouldn't argue with you about that.
Okay.
Because any man of God would not argue. What for? What? What would you get tempered up because somebody believes in something else for? That's not right. You know what I'm saying? So I believe that all these religions are built up to build themselves up for money, get like they fight over. You done heard about how the Jews killed the Jew Jesus, right?
I've heard the story.
We've heard the story. Yeah.
So I mean, come on now. That's all. I think that is made up. I think it is gonna be an afterlife. I think it is.
Okay.
But I don't think that if you continue to do anything you do just because you're a certain religion that you're gonna go to heaven, because I don't think that's good teaching. So you can go out and kill somebody and then you can pray and you're gonna go to heaven. You can go out and make genocide and then you're gonna go. That's not right. You can go out and do. So basically, they're telling you you can do whatever you want to. You can do whatever you want to, and you can get away with it, and you're gonna still be all right.
Yeah, I think we agree with you on that point. I think we agree with you there. But you did say that you do believe that there's going to be an afterlife, and I think that's what we're interested in right now.
Yeah. Why exactly do you believe that?
Yeah. Why do you believe that?
And I can't say nothing on that because I have to wait to see. I have to pray. I have to do the right things. I have to be the good person that I am today, the nonviolent person, the person on the right path, the person that I am right now, speaking to you, and pray that it's an afterlife. See, because no one knows, and anybody that tries to force that upon somebody, I don't think that's right.
Well, we don't have any problem with people believing whatever it is they want to believe, like you do, as long as you don't use it as an excuse to trample on other people's rights. And
that's
you don't.
Exactly what I'm telling you. Excuse me. That's exactly what I think religion does. they use that as an excuse, and they build up these big forms and masses, and it's all right to do it, you know. It's all right to kill millions of Jews, and you're going to go to heaven. It's all right to cut people's heads off, because what kind of God are they praising? That's not a good God. I think the God that I believe in that's talking to you right now is a good God. You know, I believe that it's leading me on the right path.
We don't hear a God talking to us right now.
What's that?
Are you God?
We don't hear any God talking to us.
No,
right
I
now.
believe that the God I believe in that has me how I am content is all right with what I believe in.
Okay, as long as you don't hurt anybody else, we're cool with that.
Yeah, and I think that, like I was saying, I think that all that religion stuff is really they need to really just read about religion. They need to read into all of that and figure out what they're saying, because it is no such thing as religion. I mean, what?
I think
you understand what I'm trying to say?
Actually, no.
It is no.
You kind of changed what you were saying there a couple times. We're getting close to the end of the show. I'm going to go ahead and let you go so we can get a couple other people real quick. But you're welcome to call back again next week
God bless you,
and explain it. Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure.
I'm glad that he doesn't think religion can possibly be a valid explanation for going out and hurting other people.
Yeah. Cool.
So, yay. I mean, I would be completely happy if the world was, if religion's role in the world was like that. Yeah. Then we probably wouldn't bother having this show.
Probably
because we wouldn't be worried that, like the woman in red said at our protest, that the plan is for Christianity to take over the United States and then throw all atheists in prison.
Yeah, actually, just as a reminder, after we're done with the show, which will be in about 3.5 minutes, we're going to Chili's at the southeast corner of I-35 and 183. Give us a little time to clean up the studio, and then we'll head down there probably around 6:45 or so. Any atheist-friendly people are welcome to come down and join us. But if you're coming down to argue with us or proselytize, you can just go ahead and wait at home and wait for next week and call back in.
Get another one in?
Yeah, I think we got time. We actually didn't get your name. Hello?
My name is Darren.
Hey, Darren, how you doing?
I'm pretty good. Actually, I just wanted to know if, I know Matt used to be a Christian. I was wondering if there's anything in the Bible. I've been reading the Bible, and that's actually why I'm an agnostic now. But I was wondering if there's anything about dinosaurs in there. Because I remember Jeff making a joke about some people actually believe that the devil put dinosaur bones to trick us or something like that. And I was wondering if there's actually an explanation in the Bible for that or not, if you knew.
There's depending on how you want to interpret it. There are references to some mythological beasts, giant lizards, other things. I haven't found anything particular in the Bible that I could identify as as a description of dinosaurs.
I've had Christians point out passages in the Bible, and I can't give you chapter and verse, I'm sorry, but I've seen that pointed out, and it's always generic references to big scary monsters, which every mythology has got. And you could just as easily argue that the Hydra from the Jason and the Argonauts is really proof that the Greek mythology is true because they had dinosaurs.
Yeah.
It's like that.
Okay, well, I also wanted to say, I know that's not really what you guys are trying to do, but you guys have, the Christians that I've called have just been, it's awesome in my opinion, because they're just really, I don't know, just out of it.
Well, some of them aren't the best representatives, but
we don't make them present themselves the way they present themselves.
That's what's great. But I think you guys are doing a great job, and keep up the good work.
Thanks a lot for calling. Let's see if we get to try this one real quick. Wendell, you there?
Yeah, I think you need to get your dicks at each other.
That's exactly what I thought.
Close on that latest note of Christian love. Thank you. Thank you. We feel your religion's love for everybody descending upon us.
It's amazing. So anyway.
So, cool.
We got about a minute left.
How do you want to fill it?
I don't know. We already did the reminder about Chili's. Are there any other news bits that I didn't talk about? Chicago, a man was arrested for allegedly scrawling big lie over the stain under the highway expressway that people had been saying looked like the Virgin Mary.
See, now we're not in favor of that. Don't deface public property in order to criticize religion. It's not cool.
Yeah, the Illinois Department of Transportation said the stain was likely a salt runoff, and the police had to paint over the big lie, and of course everything went right back to normal. He's being charged with criminal damage to state property.
Yeah, as well he should be. Though, of course, if that really was the Virgin Mary, God damaged it first.
With the salt runoff.
Yeah,
for the purposes of drawing attention.
But
we've got a few seconds left. Thanks a lot for everybody watching. You can tune in again next week at the same time. Thanks, Jeff, for coming down and sharing the show.